One of America's oldest states is disappearing. Not slowly, not theoretically, not maybe in 1,000 years. Right now. As you watch this video, the ground beneath Delaware is sinking. The ocean is rising around it. And the combination of those two forces is creating what scientists have called a sea level rise hotspot, unlike almost anywhere else on the entire Atlantic coast. And yet most people have no idea this is even happening, so let's talk about it. Delaware holds a record nobody wants. It is the lowest mean elevation state in the entire United States. We're not talking about a few low-lying beaches. We're talking about a state where the average elevation across all of its land is barely above sea level. That single fact alone would make it vulnerable. But Delaware's problem is not just about the ocean rising. The ground itself is sinking. And when you stack those two problems on top of each other, you get something terrifying. So how did this start? You have to go back to the last ice age. An enormous sheet of ice called the Laurentide Ice Sheet covered massive portions of North America, some sections reaching up to 2.5 miles thick. All that weight compressed the land underneath it, but it also pushed the surrounding land outward and upward, like pressing down on one side of a mattress. Delaware sat near the outer edge of that ice sheet, which means it got pushed up. And for thousands of years, that was fine. But then the ice melted, and just like a mattress slowly returns to flat, the land that got pushed up began sinking back down. That process is called glacial isostatic adjustment, and it has been quietly working against Delaware for the past 10,000 years. The state is sinking at roughly 1.7 millimeters per year due to this alone. That doesn't sound like much until you add the ocean on top of it. Sea levels along Delaware's coast are rising at approximately twice the global average rate. The EPA confirms it. The Delaware Geological Survey confirms it. Scientists have measured a full 13 inches of sea level rise along Delaware's coast over the past century. At Bowers Beach specifically, sea level rise is faster than anywhere else on the Atlantic coast. So you've got land going down and water coming up at the same time, and together they create a combined rise of about 3.4 millimeters per year. That number has been accelerating. The results are already visible and they are already costly. Tidal flooding in parts of the state has increased by 260% since the year 2000. Not a typo. 260%. Over 9,500 individual properties are currently at risk from tidal flooding. Every single one of Delaware's 3 counties is exposed. More than half of the state's cities face measurable flood risk. And the state has already committed over $60 million just to begin addressing this. Roads in Delaware flood during full moons. Not during hurricanes. During full moons, because the tides have gotten that much higher. Now think about the wetlands, because they are Delaware's first line of defense against all of this. And right now, Delaware is losing 1 acre of tidal wetlands every single day, gone, permanently. These wetlands act like a sponge and a wall at the same time, absorbing storm surge, filtering water, and protecting inland communities. When they disappear, communities lose that buffer and the water comes in faster and harder. Beach erosion is already progressing at over 3 feet per year along parts of the Delaware coast. The shoreline is not holding. The economic consequences are staggering in ways that most people have not processed. The Delaware estuary alone supports over 500,000 jobs and generates over $10 billion in wages each year across Delaware and the surrounding region. That entire ecosystem is at risk. A 2018 report found that roughly 24,000 Delaware homes worth around $1.3 billion will face chronic tidal flooding by 2045. That's within the lifespan of a standard 30-year mortgage. Over 98% of that flood risk falls on homeowners with properties below the state's median property value. The people who can least afford it are the ones who lose the most. And yet developers are still building in flood zones at twice the rate they are building in safe zones. By the time we reach 2100, the projections are genuinely hard to read without doing a double take. Under a conservative scenario, Delaware loses roughly 8% of its total land area, approximately 110,000 acres, including nearly all of the state's protected wetlands. Under a higher emissions scenario, sea levels could rise 4 to 6 feet by the end of the century. That puts floods 9 feet above the high tide line in play, threatening to wipe out 40,000 homes and costing over $2 billion in lost property value. And here's the thing that should keep you up at night. Even the most conservative, most optimistic scenario still has a 95% probability of happening. The Delaware Sea Level Rise Advisory Committee said so themselves. What makes all of this worse is that there is no easy fix. You cannot simply build a wall around a state. You cannot pump water back into the sky. You cannot stop glacial isostatic adjustment. Some scientists talk about managed retreat, essentially moving communities away from the coast before the water claims them. Others push for aggressive wetland restoration. Delaware has invested in renourishment projects and flood mitigation infrastructure. But those are band-aids on a wound that is getting wider every year. Delaware is one of the most historically significant states in America. It was the first to ratify the Constitution. It is one of the most important legal and corporate hubs in the country. Over 900,000 people call it home. And right now, the ground they are standing on is slowly vanishing beneath rising water. The science is not contested. The data is not exaggerated. The question is whether people will pay attention before the problem becomes impossible to ignore. So next time someone tells you sea level rise is a distant problem, remind them that in Delaware, the roads already flood during a full moon. If this opened your eyes, drop a comment with what shocked you most. Subscribe to Yesterday's Secret.